They built an entire neighborhood on my property. 96 luxury homes. Swimming pools. Tennis courts. A clubhouse worth millions. The Homeowners Association didn't ask permission. They didn't offer compensation. They just took my land. And I let them finish. Every single foundation. Every roof. Every perfectly manicured lawn. I watched construction crews arrive at dawn for 18 months while neighbors whispered that I'd lost my mind. But here's what nobody knew. I was waiting. Calculating. Building the most devastating legal case this county had ever seen. Because when you own 47 acres of prime real estate and someone steals it right under your nose, you don't interrupt them when they're making a mistake. My name is Robert Chen, and this is the true story of how a paperwork error, a corrupt developer, and one arrogant HOA president handed me a $380 million payday. 3 years ago, my grandfather passed away and left me his property in North Carolina. 47 acres of beautiful woodland on the outskirts of Charlotte. My grandfather bought this land in 1967 for $8,000. By 2021, it was worth roughly $12 million. I'm a software engineer in Seattle. The inheritance was unexpected. I'd visited my grandfather's property maybe twice as a kid. Honestly, my plan was simple. Hold on to it for a few years, let it appreciate, maybe build a retirement cabin someday. The land was paid off. Property taxes were minimal. No rush. February 2022. I received a letter from the Meadowbrook Estates Homeowners Association. The letter informed me that I was in violation of community bylaws. Apparently, my lot had overgrown vegetation, and I needed to maintain my lawn or face a $200 weekly fine. I read this letter 3 times. Lot. Lawn. I owned 47 acres of forest. There was no lot. There was no lawn. I called the number on the letterhead. A woman named Patricia Summers answered. She introduced herself as the HOA president. Mr. Chen, your property at Lot 34, Meadowbrook Estates, is in clear violation. I don't own a lot. I own 47 acres of woodland. Has been in my family since 1967. Silence. Then she said, Sir, Meadowbrook Estates is a planned community of 96 homes. We broke ground 14 months ago. If you owned this land, you would have been contacted by the developers. My stomach dropped. I booked a flight to Charlotte that night. Driving up to my grandfather's property, I took the same rural highway I remembered from childhood. But when I reached the turnoff, I didn't recognize anything. The forest was gone. In its place stood a sprawling suburban development. Rows of identical 2-story homes. Sidewalks. Street lamps. A massive entrance gate with a stone sign. Meadowbrook Estates, a luxury community. I pulled up to the gate. A security guard stopped me. Can I help you? I need to speak with whoever's in charge of this development. Do you have an appointment with the sales office? I own this land. The guard's expression shifted from professional courtesy to barely concealed amusement. Sir, this is private property. If you don't have business here. I pulled out my phone and showed him the property deed I'd photographed before leaving Seattle. His smile vanished. Within an hour, I was sitting in a conference room with Patricia Summers, the HOA president, and a man named Douglas Worth, the lead developer from Pinnacle Properties Group. Douglas wore a suit that probably cost more than my car. Patricia looked like she'd just stepped out of a country club magazine. Both of them looked at me like I was a problem to be managed. Douglas began, Mr. Chen, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Did you purchase this land from anyone in my family? We purchased this parcel from the estate of Harold Chen in December 2020. That's impossible. Harold Chen was my grandfather. He died in November 2021. 1 full year after you claim to have purchased this property. I watched the color drain from Douglas's face. Patricia jumped in. "Mr. Chen, we have documentation. The sale was legitimate. Perhaps there's another Harold Chen." I slid a copy of the original 1967 deed across the table. Then my grandfather's death certificate. Then the will that transferred the property to me. This land has been in continuous Chen family ownership for 54 years. So explain to me how you built 96 homes on property you never legally purchased. Over the next 2 weeks, my attorney uncovered the fraud. In 2020, someone had filed forged documents with the county clerk's office, claiming to represent my grandfather's estate. These documents stated that Harold Chen had passed away and his property was being sold to settle debts. The forger had created a fake death certificate. Fake estate documents. Even a fake will. Pinnacle Properties had purchased the land for $4.2 million, well below market value, from this non-existent estate. The money had been wired to an offshore account that disappeared within 72 hours. When I showed all this to Douglas Worth, he went pale. We conducted a title search. Everything checked out. Your title search missed that my grandfather was still alive when you bought his land. Either your team is incompetent or someone paid them to look the other way. Here's where it got interesting. My attorney discovered that the title company Pinnacle used was owned by Douglas Worth's brother-in-law. My lawyer wanted to file an immediate injunction. Stop construction. Freeze everything. I said no. Robert, they're building on your land right now. Every day we wait. Let them finish. She looked at me like I'd lost my mind. But here's what I understood that she didn't yet. If I stopped construction immediately, Pinnacle Properties would declare bankruptcy. They'd tie this up in court for a decade. I'd get my land back eventually, but it would be a construction site. Abandoned half-built homes. Environmental cleanup costs. Legal fees that would consume any settlement. But if I let them finish, Pinnacle would invest everything into completing this development. They'd pour in another $200 million. They'd landscape. They'd build amenities. They'd create something valuable. And then I'd take it all. For the next 16 months, I watched them build. I rented an apartment 3 miles from Meadowbrook Estates. I drove past the development every single day. I watched the homes go up one by one. Watched families move in. Watched children play in the parks they'd built on my land. Pinnacle launched an aggressive marketing campaign. Luxury living minutes from uptown Charlotte. Homes sold for between $800,000 and $1.2 million each. The HOA formed officially. Patricia Summers was elected president. They established bylaws. Created committees. Started collecting dues. And they had no idea what was coming. My attorney thought I was insane. Robert, they've now sold 83 of the 96 homes. You're letting innocent families move on to your property. They're not innocent. They're protected. North Carolina law protects good faith purchasers. These families will be fine. But Pinnacle? The HOA? They're about to learn a very expensive lesson. While I waited, I hired a team of forensic accountants and investigators. We discovered that this wasn't Pinnacle's first fraudulent land grab. Over the past 12 years, Douglas Worth had orchestrated at least 4 similar schemes in 3 different states. He'd been sued twice before, but both cases settled quietly with NDAs. We found the forger, a disbarred attorney named Michael Voss who'd been paid $50,000 to create the fake estate documents. Michael was willing to testify in exchange for immunity. We documented every single building code violation in the development. Turns out when you're building on stolen land with fraudulent permits, you cut corners. We found structural issues. Electrical problems. Violations that would cost millions to repair. And we waited for them to finish. August 2023. The last home in Meadowbrook Estates sold. Pinnacle Properties for fraud and unjust enrichment. The title company for negligence and conspiracy. The HOA for trespassing and accepting stolen property. We even sued the county clerk's office for failing to catch the forged documents. The lawsuit was 247 pages long. Douglas Worth's attorney called mine. Your client is being unreasonable. We can settle this. Name a number. My attorney replied, $380 million. Plus attorney fees. Plus the cost of relocating every single homeowner if they choose to leave. They laughed. We went to try. The trial lasted 3 weeks. We brought Michael Voss to testify. He described in detail how Douglas Worth had hired him to forge the estate documents. How Douglas knew my grandfather was still alive. How the whole thing was planned from the beginning. We showed the forged death certificate next to the real one, the one filed 13 months later. We demonstrated that the title company had been paid $200,000 to approve the fraudulent title search. We showed that Patricia Summers had been warned 6 months into construction that there might be a title issue, and she buried the report. The defense crumbled. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. They found Pinnacle Properties guilty of fraud, conspiracy, and unjust enrichment. They awarded me the entire development. All 96 homes. The clubhouse. The amenities. Everything. They also awarded $180 million in punitive damages. And here's the beautiful part. Under North Carolina law, the homeowners who'd purchased in good faith were protected. They got to keep their homes, but now they were my tenants. I became their landlord overnight. Patricia Summers stood up and screamed at the judge. This is insane. These people bought these homes legally. You can't just do this. The judge cut her off. Mrs. Summers, these people bought homes built on stolen land. They're fortunate that Mr. Chen has agreed to honor their purchases by. I brought a bottle of his favorite whiskey and poured some on the ground. Grandpa, remember how you always told me that patience and documentation would solve any problem? I showed him a photo of the settlement check. You were right. People ask me if I feel bad for the families who got caught in the middle. The truth is, I protected them. They got their homes at a discount. The real victims were the ones who deserved it, the people who thought they could steal land and get away with it. My grandfather bought that property in 1967 for $8,000 because he believed in legacy. He believed in protecting what you build. They tried to steal that legacy. Instead, they handed me 380 million reasons to remember his name. And that's exactly what I intend to do. The sign at the entrance to Meadowbrook Estates still stands. But there's a new plaque underneath it now. It reads, Chen Family Property, established 1967. Some mistakes cost you money. This one cost them everything.